Okay, so this is Robin Hood, me. I'm not, Frank's not going to join us today. Um, and I am, I have several things on my mind that I like to talk about. And one is the idea of liking. And because of my abusive background, the abuse in my life, I think I'm just realizing that, excuse me, I think I'm just realizing that I have not actually been very connected even with the idea of liking, of being aware of my liking situations or people. I remember this one girl that I was dating for a little bit years ago asked me one day, "Do you like me?" And I actually was kind of stumped by the question. I, and I excuse me, I feel like it wasn't because uh I did or didn't like her. It was more because I was just kind of like not even aware of the concept of liking because I had so many fears. And I've been watching Carl Jung lately because I'm thinking about enrolling in a accredited spiritual psychology program, university. And I've been I and one of those approaching the unconscious video on YouTube, and in there he talks about um, complexes, and just the fact that he had that title of that concept, I found a little bit liberating because it was like he was so neutral about it that people just have complexes, and it's like a complex is like a certain center of something that kind of reveals itself, but it's a way of like being concerned about something within yourself, like either being afraid of something or being confused by something or having an issue that somehow life or your subconscious reveals to you, maybe directly to your conscience or through dreams. And I I just was like, I just felt something inside of myself, like a sense of acceptance for my inner processes and these things that I never really quite had a title for, when they reach a certain level with their enough kind of like rotating around it. Like a planet has moons and has a certain amount of gravitational force, and as a planet is forming, it's pulling matter in with, well, when it gets to a certain point you can call it a planet, right? When it attracts enough stuff, it graduates to a planet and not just random mass, random matter. And that to me is what the idea of what a complex is, when it's something serious enough that it's pulled enough stuff into it or it's involving enough stuff. It's not just like one little issue caused by some sort of event in your life, but there's a pattern there that has kind of affected you in a way where it kind of affects a lot of different aspects of you, or affects a lot of different a certain number of different experiences in life, all are related to this certain issue. And that's what my idea is of his use of the word complex. So um it was affirming because basically his statement was we all have complexes, and it's not a disorder, it's not something really, really serious. And it doesn't necessarily even mean that there's something broken about us. It could just mean that we haven't been given the opportunity, within our own experience to resolve this. And it's kind of just a normal experience out of normal experience. Society's not perfect. We're not perfect. Our parents aren't perfect. Sometimes those things in certain areas can be far from perfect. but this idea that it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or broken about you, like innately, but just the combination of who you are and who everyone else is and where we are at in the progression of society and culture, it becomes something that causes us to have problems dealing with other normal stuff that just comes up. And the problem can be a functionality problem. It can limit our ability to experience what we desire to experience. So that's a functionality problem. Or it can cause us internal suffering emotionally, psychically, maybe unconsciously. It affects us and limits us, or unconsciously makes us feel not integrated with ourselves, which I think would cause suffering. In fact, I'm sure it does because I've experienced it. But anyway, so the idea of liking and following my likes, following my attractions as a person around other situations and people, it's been something I've been very, very insecure about. And I think some of it is because sometimes, like for instance, when I would like and be attracted to a woman, and then I would express that, and then there would be some guy that somehow in the situation will come along and threaten me. Uh, that's something that definitely puts a fear on being yourself and feeling and expressing your likes. But what's worse than that is if that experience gets interpreted by me as that I'm doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with me for having had that like and for having expressed it. And then getting into the part where maybe because of the way my mom treated me, that she didn't like me and that I was bad and she was always angry with me, made me not feel like I was liked enough to be safe enough to express my like to others. In other words, I didn't even have a positive expectation that I would be liked. And so I had to hide myself from expressing my likes for others because I feared that that would reveal or they would react against me and not like me, or there'd be some kind of negative backlash because I couldn't even consider the possibility that I was liked enough to express my like for others. And the flip side of that is avoiding situations or things that you think you're not going to like or that you won't like. And that's also kind of can come from, in me, from having a lot of negativity associated and focused in my direction, pointed in my direction, and delivered at me by my mom and sometimes by my dad and sometimes by other people because I was kind of like not socially amenable. I wasn't flowing socially as a little kid. I was kind of withdrawn. And sometimes when I would come out of my withdrawnness, I think I wasn't really, there wasn't a mutual reading of signals from others. And so I would do things that would somehow, I wasn't sensitive to, might cross the line. I didn't have a feeling for gradual uh, testing the waters with other people and seeing where they were at and starting with the little steps and things like that. And so there was a lot, I had a lot of negative experiences whenever I would come out of my shell. And sometimes I would come out of my shell with really heavy duty feelings because there was all these feelings that I didn't get to express at home. And a lot of, because of the abuse, I was kind of like just this accumulation of negative feelings, rage and anger and uh what would be some of the other feelings? Um, Definitely fear. Uh, Trying to express why other people were having problems relating to me on some level, maybe emotionally or verbally, expressing a sort of, disappointment with others, maybe because of what was going on within me, like my own internal dialogue, my own internal feelings, and the patterns of those feelings, the connections, how feelings were connected to heavy duty stuff inside of me. So I think I was many times reacting or trying to express myself more out of my own, from my own inner world, than also looking at where other people were and what they were doing and how they were feeling. That, I had so much to deal with inside myself that I couldn't really understand or take the time or conceive of dealing or being aware of others. I just seemed so overwhelmed with everything that was going on inside of myself. So, and I hadn't really had the chance at home to get those positive experiences where I would have been more attracted to reaching out. So, and there was physical abuse, and also I was in German schools in Germany in the military. My dad was in the military, so there was some pretty rough family family experiences going on in the military, and also being in the military schools and things like that with all those kids from all those families. I think there was probably some attacks on me that were just generated out of people's own stuff. And uh, what a mess, man. What a mess. Oh God, it was bad. And there was a lot of times that I felt like I was being singled out for some reason on the playground and also on the way home. Like groups of kids would either chase me or find me or trap me, and then some kid in the group would grab me and throw me down and get on top of me and start hitting me in the face. And all the kids around would be laughing. And I don't know if it was partly because of my name, Robin Hood, and kids were jealous, like trying to prove that Robin Hood wasn't so great or something. I mean, I never even really found out why, because I didn't really have the ability to ask, why are you doing this? And it never occurred to me to ask either, you know. And then one time on the playground, I tried to stand up to the bullying, and the teacher just happened to notice that I hit the guy back in the belly right when I did it. And I ended up getting taken to the principal's office and getting in trouble. And this is after I had been harassed and bullied and beat up like for years. And it was like I literally going to school was like hell for me. And the one time I first tried to stand up for himself, I got in trouble. Good grief, man. It's like, fuck, how does a kid deal with that? How do you process that? How do you integrate that? So anyway, so because of a lot of this stuff, I had not developed the skill and the ability, the technique, the mechanism to be aware of what I like and use that as a guide to what I pursue, either situations or opportunities, jobs, education, relationships, where I lived. I was literally felt so bad about myself and so lost in the complexities of life and just the myriad fears. I mean, probably for me, it's got to have been multiple complexes, not just the like complex, but multiple complexes that all kind of circled around and delivered their amount of fear to me. Basically, painting a picture of the world for me that I could not, that overwhelmed me, that it was just unsafe to extend myself out and to try to, uh, you know, explore into the world. But nevertheless, I had to survive. And so I found ways that seemed safer to me. And one of them was discovering in grade school that I had an ability to study and to go deeply into, studying on my own. And so I spent many, many years of my life just studying. And, then eventually it ended up getting certificates in IT. I have more certificates than almost anybody that I've ever met in IT. And, uh, and then also getting a degree. And, I had my moments in my life where I tried to break out of that, that aloneness more and more. The one time after I had a spiritual awakening and I went down to San Francisco to help the homeless, for me, that was really stepping out of my aloneness. And it just so happens that I love people and I love socializing. So my personality is actually a very social personality, it turns out. And so that's been kind of like another wound in my life as well, and another confusion, because I would actually feel another layer of unhappiness at being so alone, because I have such a high desire and happiness associated with socializing. I read a book one time that says that people are at different levels in the, let's say, there are different points on the continuum as to how much socializing makes them happy. And ended up, I'm very high on the need to socialize in order to feel that my life is happy and that things are going good for me and I'm getting what I want in life. And so, having been so abused and so isolated, not only did the complexes themselves cause pain and confusion, but the aloneness was like another layer of unhappiness. And ah, um, so what does it mean to explore liking? So for me, it's this really beautiful, pure thing where you just, the identification of liking someone, let's say, different from, just like sexual physical attraction, but like liking their mind or liking what they do, that what they do is kind of a reflection of how their mind works. And the things that they like to talk about. And it's like I can feel it every once in a while because I'm in this non-accredited spiritual psychology program at USM right now. And there's certain conversations I've had with people in the class where they've just, you could just see how much they liked me, and I could feel that I liked them. This thing that's opening up for me, that experience. And when those moments come that are so far and few between for me up to this point, and then I can begin to see the characteristics of those experiences. And it's really amazingly wonderful and nice, but so odd for me at this point of my life to be just describing something that other kids, many of them might have experienced in grade school, maybe even in kindergarten. And, because I can see in these like adolescent movies that are kind of targeted to the age group and puberty age group. I can see in those movies that so much of the movies are about that liking, like their feelings getting hurt when they like somebody and somebody doesn't like them. Well, that was such a loaded thing for me, that very first level of not being like somebody else by somebody else made me withdraw all the way into my own shell again for years, because I wasn't even exposed enough, and I was so lost in trying to deal with what was going on within me while still being abused at the time. And we're talking 24/7 anger and negativity and attack. Um, that was going on so much for me that the few times that I tried, and inevitably because of the complexities of all the people involved, the bad stuff happens. That to me was a trauma, and a kind of like a verification that there was something wrong with me and I should pull away, and that it's dangerous, I'm going to be hurt. When I was already so hurt inside myself, it's kind of like uh, it just became another trauma on top of a super traumatized person. So simple experiences that weren't going my way, I took in a traumatic way. I'm not totally sure about that, but I'm just trying to give you my best guess right now. And part of it I can relate to, and it kind of connects with me inside, but part of it is just me trying to define what was an obvious circumstances in the situation that I could see mentally, intellectually would contribute to the problem. But I do know that my reaction was that there was something really wrong with me, and something that I feared could not be fixed because of all of the complexity, all of the lack of integration. That's it. So there was such a lack of integration on so many different levels. I couldn't use other parts of myself that were integrated to process that next part that was unintegrated that came up in that situation. So I didn't have anything to build on when I was already in the full complexity of social life in grade school. And so that is a serious problem that I do feel like needs to be addressed in our society and our culture for people who are deeply wounded. That it's not just enough to throw them out into grade schools and to throw them into the experience of getting socialized. There needs to be more than that to help kids who are in that come from really abusive situations or somewhat abusive situations. There needs to be something to help kids to integrate uh, to the point where they're at, reaching them at the point they are at. And, there's going to be parents who are going to want to hide the abuse that they do. And so there's going to be parents who are not going to want to admit that those kids have those needs, because that might uncover the fact that they have a problem, they're being abusive, especially in our society now, where the legal system is jumping in and putting people in legal jeopardy, um, due to, uh, under the auspices of trying to protect people in our society, and all they're doing is further traumatizing people, and it's job security for them, and they should not be, it should not be allowed for the legal system to have direct access to parents without there being some sort of mediating layer there to protect them if they're willing to cooperate and learn and grow in a way that does not stigmatize them, and does not cause negative consequences for jobs or for acceptance in society. And right now, I think it is ridiculous that people are facing legal problems like jail time, prison, and everything when they're definitely abused and have issues that they need healing from. I mean, that is just ridiculous. I'm sure it can be said much more eloquently by other people, but I know that what I say is true. It rings of truth. And many, many people will agree with me, I am sure, except for maybe people who, for some reason, want to defend the legal system, uh, which I'm sure there is, there are valuable and good ideas in the legal system, but there's a lot of stuff that just is a reaction to maybe reactionary legislation. Um, and I don't think it's okay for legislation to just be passed, because legislation is based on political processes, and then that legislation is passed, and then the legal system enforces that legislation, and people end up getting hurt. And so there needs to be a buffer, there needs to be a protective social layer that protects from legislation that is just reactionary. Maybe they have some good intent, but maybe they're trying to apply it in a reactive way or in a way that causes harm. It's like, you know, when the oppressed become the oppressors. It's a pattern down through history where those who have been oppressed, in order to liberate themselves, go to the point of attacking others and forcing others to comply with things that causes them pain and suffering. So we need a way to heal society and to protect society that doesn't go past that point and cause harm on the other side. And anyway, so everybody's got good intentions to some degree, but they also, to some degree, have limited understanding in how to protect others in their cause. And that takes a social awareness and a social knowledge, because that's not a simple topic, but it is a real thing. And I hope that our culture and our society can mature in this area. We need to mature. We need a social theory, a social approach that makes things good for everybody involved. Um, so anyway, I today I've been trying to process the fears that come up when I start to look at the things that I'm interested in. The good thing about this is I know that this is a healing process for me. I know what I'm doing is becoming more aware And that's a good thing. There's no question about that. More awareness always makes things better for individuals and between people. Um, it could make, people could use that in a negative way, but people could use lack of awareness in a negative way. Awareness itself brings more options. It brings the ability to help people to meet things in their own selves or in others in more granular ways. Uh, More people's needs can get met through more uh, you know, you have to know what somebody needs in order to have a chance at providing that to them. And the more you understand it from their perspective, the better chance you're going to have of of uh, of them having the experience or giving them the experience for what they truly want and need inside themselves in a deeper way. Going deeper is a good thing. Um, and I'm sure I can hear just people talking right now. I can hear them saying, you're over analyzing, you're overthinking. You don't need to go deeper. Sometimes just be yourself, just be natural. But when you're talking about abuse, you don't have the freedom to just be yourself. You have to unravel it. There's fears there that keep you from even just being yourself. And everybody has fears, even people who aren't quote unquote physically beaten. There's many forms of emotional abuse. And there's many people out there who, out of their own lack of integration, are exerting control on other people to feel better themselves. That's what bullying is. And there's many, many people out of defensiveness who will give you that eye of threat, because and that people can experience that as them not being free to be themselves in situations, to function in a situation in a whole way, to do what you want to do, to also be considerate of others, but also to do what meets your needs in each situation. In each situation, there's always a complicated other people's needs and other people's desires and your needs and your desires. It's always complicated. But when somebody bullies, they're getting their needs met or their desires met at the expense of the other person having to hide and shut down and feel bad about themselves and feel threatened and feel lesser than the other person. And it takes many, many years, especially for a person who's been in abusive lifetime patterns or situations, to be able to just have themselves in situations that involve others, especially others who are bullying. And it's so cool when you can start to see through that, you can start to get through that. But 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 liking, being being connected to what you like and following what you like in life is deeply connected to the ability to hold your own in a situation, because that means that you're going to have to express that to people. People are going to doubt it, people are going to question it, people are going to not understand it. When you move in a direction that you like, for anything, like my moving in the direction of spiritual psychology and getting a degree for that, uh, it brings up a lot of fears. It brings up a lot of challenges for me, because there's another aspect of liking, which is speaking your truth in situations that arise. And I've had a lot of fear, a lot of confusion, and a lot of inner turmoil as to how to do that. A lot of negative feelings about me speaking what I think in situations, what I feel. And some of the classes that I've been in lately, like the practitioner's course through spirit, uh, the Spiritual Center, the Centers for Spiritual Living, CSL. This practitioner's classes, there's times that I did not agree with the book we were reading. And there's times I didn't agree with the workbook. And there's times that I also didn't experience the things the way other people in the class were describing that they experienced things. So every time there's a difference there, it was a huge challenge for me to find a way to express my truth without feeling like they were going to reject me or interpret that I was putting somebody down, not accepting their view. So through the class, I had to learn these skills. There's many skills of becoming more aware of when to share. Maybe right after somebody says their point is not the best time to share that you see it in a different way. Maybe waiting until a time they circle around the discussion one time until the next time your turn comes up. Maybe that's a better time to bring it out, and also to bring it out in a way that affirms the other person, not directly, possibly, but maybe, say, wow, I really liked what you said. I can see your perspective. I think that's sometimes the way it can happen. But for me, I've experienced it happening the other way, where the other comes first and then that comes. You know, uh, this is all really, really new for me. And I've also kind of learned in the work environment how to not threaten people and, how to bring out my differences. And if you want to go deeper than somebody else has gone, that's another challenging situation because maybe, they're not thinking about it in such deep terms, but I feel that there's a really important reason to me to go deeper because there's something I connect with on a deeper level that I would like to have the chance to express. And giving ourselves expression, giving ourselves language, to voice things and to be able to give names to things, this is all part of integration and healing. And so it's multi vociferous challenges. I don't know if multi-vociferous is the right word there. It just came up. But definitely multi-complexes of things, multi-complexities, multiple complexities. There we go. Multiple complexities in many dimensions of things, right? That make this all hard. And and just make it really obvious that there's a need for us to support, to create a structure and an understanding to support people who are having all of these multi complexities, uh, um, complexes. And that's back to the word complexes, right? Multi complexities, and challenges multidimensionally complex. So that needs a lot of support. And it doesn't just need support individual to individual, like in a counseling or a clinical setting. It needs social support because it's in the social where a lot of this stuff has to be worked out and learned. It needs to be in multi-person situations. We need that layer of compassionate, protected, um, interactions and venues, community spaces in everyday society, uh, institutionally implemented, because there's so many people out there that aren't going to go to a church or go to a spiritual thing. Even children, they're not necessarily, and they're just in the public schools, and the public schools are not providing that intermediate level. And kids come out of abusive situations and they're lost. They're lost within themselves, and society doesn't provide this layer. It's necessary. So anyway, thank God and thank Robin and thank those people who I have found who've given me compassion and support and love and understanding to discover that all of this stuff that's important to me isn't just some harebrained problem that I have or some defective need that I have to integrate. But I can see now clearly how how powerful we need to really stand up for this, because if there's nothing wrong with me and I am seeing the need for all of this, then it's a real thing and it's a serious thing. And I guess I had to go through getting really, really messed up to be able to see how really, really important this stuff is, so I can really, really support others getting it. You know, I don't think I needed to, but in order to see it, I probably had to have gone through what I have gone through, because I carried for most of those years of my life a insecurity in myself that made it so that I never could really know if this was something others would need. I just The wounded part of me still thought that it just boiled down to it could be that there's something wrong with me, and that's why people weren't liking me. And now I see it's because I did not have the healthiness and the ability to be integrated enough, to be able to read others enough, to come with my genuine self, my truth, to them in a way that wouldn't threaten them. And yay, I'm getting there. Yeah. So I guess I'll say today for goodbye for today. And I just want to say I have experienced the Divine Mother loving me and a presence of my soul that's beyond the physical, and energies and love and bliss. I have had those experiences. So um, I'm going to say that it's real. It's possible you can experience those things too, because I know that I have. Aside from my healing psychologically, I've also had spiritual experiences um, that are beyond my mind and my emotions and my psyche and this physical world. So it's really awesome. I'd be willing to talk about that at any point. If anybody leaves any comments, uh, I want to try to respond. So bye bye.